Welcome to the Running with James podcast. We are committed to helping runners, OCR athletes, and the everyday person get involved, get connected, and get committed to becoming the best versions of themselves. Remember, when you change your mind, you change your life. Now here's your host, James Wyatt.
And welcome back to another edition of Running with James, where we get down and dirty and we get real. And what do we get real about, people?
Life.
Fitness.
Oh. I forgot.
Running is the key word.
What podcast we were on.
Running with James. Okay.
I'm always getting real about life.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm your host, James Wyatt, and joined by Coach Lauren over here.
Hi.
To my right, your left over here is Coach Carlos.
Hello, everyone.
And I know Coach Carlos has been on here a few times. I'm not really ready to say he's a part of the podcast because somebody could come along that's better. I don't want to hurt your feelings.
No, I understand. It's it's competition.
Yeah, it's a competition, and we really haven't really. I mean, this is more. Think of this as like a
Trial run.
Trial run, yeah. That's a good way
Yeah,
to
this is
put
like
it.
a good trial
It's
run.
like your interview kind of.
Kind of think like a sitcom, like not part of the cast, guest.
Yes.
Guest star.
Exactly.
They kind of recur here and
Yes.
there, but it's not like on the original.
Recurring guest host.
Recurring role, yeah.
Yeah, it's a recurring
I'll
role.
take
So
it.
that you never know. 7 years later,
That's it.
you've been the longest one on the show.
I would really hope that after 7 years, it's no longer like a trial. That
Well,
was
I don't know if this makes you feel any better, but I was going through our notes, right? So our shared notes that we use, like the show notes, what have you. And so I was like, who's on these notes? And I looked at it, and I was like, well, okay, I probably could take this person off. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share this with Carlos so I don't have to keep sending him the notes whenever I invite him on the show. So that should make you feel good.
It's an honor.
Yeah, it should be.
It is.
So I don't know if you get a notification if you get taken off with notes, do you?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think. I mean,
Because that probably wouldn't be good. Like somebody's
Well-
like, you've just been removed from the notes.
You'll get a
Well, if I see
passive
that,
aggressive comment.
if I see that on my phone, I'll be like, I guess I'm not appearing this week.
Yeah.
So I'll
There's
take
your
that.
sign, bro. There's your sign.
You've been replaced.
So, but yeah, I think we're back up in the studio. Last week we were having to, we had to kind of move around because they're doing some work up in the studio. So, and we are back in front of you. So hopefully today we won't screw up too bad, and we'll make this look good. But I'm going to tell you this. And I don't know if people are trying to help me. And people try to be helpful all the time. I'm not sure if people, but I've had an inordinate amount of people sending me podcasts this week to check out.
Oh, wow.
And they're like, "Oh, this is a really good podcast. You should listen to this episode." And some of them I listen to, some of them I don't. And somebody sent me a link of one too, and checked it out. And these were some pretty big podcasts, legitimate people.
Okay.
And they're pretty willy-nilly. Just so you know.
What do you mean, willy-nilly? Just throwing stuff out there?
Well,
I think it depends on which ones you're listening to.
Like the video was like they were, it was like off-centered sometimes. It was on, they were moving the cameras like kind of randomly. Guys got up and got to the bathroom,
wow.
like random, like, hey man, I got to go to the bathroom. And he just stood up and walked out, right? And this is a huge podcast. I mean, this is legitimate. They've got millions of, subscribers and followers. These guys were all like very well known and very famous, and they had a guest on. It was like a 3-hour podcast too.
Oh, I just bet you tell me that. I feel like I know a podcast.
It's like a 3-hour podcast. No, it's not Joe Rogan.
Oh, okay.
But it was like a 3-hour podcast.
His
And I'm
are
like,
notoriously long.
holy crud. That's a long podcast. And someone sent me another one, the Huberman, I forgot what he calls it, but it's like the guy that, you know what I'm talking about?
No.
He's like a scientist or whatever. But he does, I know you know it because you send me stuff from him all the time. But he's the guy who puts like the mouthpiece thing in his mouth. And he got like a kind of a beard, bigger guy.
Not Rich Roll.
He just did one. No, his name's Huberman.
Huberman. I'm trying to.
And he just did one about sprinting. And there was a guy on there and they were skipping.
Okay.
And like skipping is like Tommy sent us one, I think about a few months ago or a few weeks ago. You don't remember that? Obviously you didn't look at it.
No.
No, I don't.
Okay. So
remember
anyway,
that.
I'm failing you.
you are, both of you are actually. So if you saw it, you know what I was talking about.
Probably.
But his was like 2.5 hours for an episode. Now his was very scientific. So, they're just getting in the weeds of science and like all these studies and stuff like that. But so I didn't know if they were telling me ours isn't long enough.
I don't.
Or if like they were trying to encourage like, hey, you guys are doing a great job, even though sometimes, the dog unhooks the audio cable and you can't hear Carlos the last 10 minutes of the episode.
Just for that, if anyone wants to hear the missing parts, I'll gladly ride around town with them
And just tell you about
just
it.
fill it in. I'll fill it in as we go.
As you're listening,
Yeah.
he'll interject.
I'll interject my parts of it.
Yes.
Just require, maybe an iced coffee and a snack.
Right.
I'm
And
good.
so here was the thing is we used to be, much better. We were ahead of the game. We were always ahead of the game. So we always try to record a couple episodes before. So in case something happened and we needed to go back and edit it or we needed to go back and, re-record it or something,
Yeah.
we had the time. But when we record these things fresh and live for you, I literally have about, I don't know, maybe 6 hours to listen, edit, and put it up there.
Yeah, it's usually like the Friday morning task.
Right. So it's like one of the last, it's like I'm trying to get it done as quick as possible. And so when that happens, I've got to depend that we did a great job. And so sometimes I make notes of like, okay, I need to cut this or I need to edit this so I can kind of get through it a little faster. So when something like that happens, it's like I just have to listen to it, the whole thing, to know that it happened. And so
Yeah.
it was at the very end, so I didn't catch it.
Well,
Until I was listening to it 2 days later, and I was like, where did Carlos go? He just disappeared. He just got up and walk out.
I hadn't listened to it until Jessica.
She said something about it?
Yeah, at the track.
Yeah.
So
But hey, stuff happens, and we're getting better at this. If maybe we had more subscribers, more listeners, and more Patreons, maybe we could, give you higher quality product. Don't you think?
I think so.
Yeah.
But maybe that's what they like, the realness.
They like it real and raw.
Real and raw. Just
Real
throwing
and
it
raw.
out there. No,
Toss it
this
out.
world of filters. We're just giving you the raw footage.
I like it. Well, getting back to like the podcast idea, right? So someone sent me the one on the Huberman, and it was about nutrition, and it was very fascinating. And it took me all day to listen to it, though. I'm not going to lie, because it was so long, and I couldn't like just sit and listen for 2.5 hours. So I'm like bits and pieces. Like it actually took me almost 2 days to listen to it.
Yeah.
So, which is fine, right? I'm sure people have to do the same thing with ours, right? And as I was listening to it, there were several topics and things that I agreed with, and other things that maybe I didn't disagree with as much as like I was not super accepting of it, right? So. His guest was a scientist, and he had done a lot of study, and he's a vegan as well, or plant-based. How about that? And so he was really touting the benefits of a plant-based diet. So obviously someone who eats a plant-based diet felt like it would be good to send that to me because I'm fat and out of shape, and they don't want me to be fat and out of shape. Does that make sense?
I think so.
So what they did is they heard this podcast that justifies their lifestyle, and now they're trying to blow my lifestyle up because I like a little steak.
So kind of a little bit of an attack.
I felt that way.
A little
I felt
bit.
that way. But when I listened to it, But so, as I was listening to it, there was definitely, they both had differing opinions on some things. But neither one of them were wrong. Does that make sense? Yeah. And when I say that, it was, the one guy, the guy who was more on like the plant-based diet style, he had done a lot of studies and showed a lot of the different, statistics that came back about not really performance as much as health and lowering, cholesterol and, hypertension numbers and longevity of life, things of that nature, even energy levels, stuff like that. And was just talking about how your body metabolizes fat and carbohydrates and stuff like that. The average person, I feel like, listening to that podcast would have been so lost.
Like eyes glazed over.
Yes, right?
There are some podcasts that I listen to, as I listen to a lot of them, and when they get so deep in the science, like to where I basically feel like I need a medical degree to understand what you're
Yep.
saying. Same thing happens. My eyes, I try not to let my eyes glaze over, but I do find myself like backing it up like all too often, and it doubles the amount of time because I'm like, I gotta like look up this word. I have no idea what they're talking about.
Yes.
And I feel stupid.
and I'm sure a lot of people probably feel that same way, right? So like for the, the average Joe who's not like, this is what they do, a lot of that was lost on them, I feel like. And at this, it was a long podcast too, because they would get so much into the minutia of it. Mm-hmm. But what I found that they talked about was basically they were both right. They didn't necessarily disagree, but what it came down to was three main things. One, sustainability. Mm-hmm. what could you sustain? 2 was what do you enjoy? And 3, overall, like genetics, like how does your body react? Because
Okay.
everyone is different, right? So
Yeah.
everyone's genetics are different. And so how I metabolize carbohydrates is different than, say, how Carlos might metabolize carbohydrates, right? You may be more efficient at processing fat than I am, and vice versa. And so, the overall arching thing was everybody can benefit from this, but based off of what you're doing, where you're going, your preferences, this may be better for you or this may be better for you. And a big part of it was, sustainability.
Well, and I think the major takeaway for a lot of those kind of podcasts is it's not a one size fits all because everyone's so different.
Well, I mean, I don't necessarily agree with that.
No?
Because I think a lot of podcasts this is how you should be doing it, right? This is the way to go about it. Like Liver King is a good example, right?
Liver King?
Yeah, you never heard of Liver King?
What's a Liver King? I guess not.
He's like a social media guy, or actually a supplement company too. I think we made a lot of his money, but big on social media. He just eats like liver, works out tough.
Does all these crazy things, and he's jacked. He's humongous with a beard.
And he said he was
never wears a shirt,
natural.
and he says he's all natural, and he's gotten it all from eating liver. And it's not actually true. It's come out that he's done tons of steroids. He's actually not doing well, I think, health-wise right now. He's got some kind of mass or something, because they actually brought him up on that podcast.
That does not sound like an enjoyable life, is just eating a lot of liver, if that were
Well,
true.
I think that's not the only thing he's eating.
Well, yeah.
Right. But it was like part of his videos, he would like drag something. He'd have like weights on his ankles and whatever. He's dragging something up a mountain. He's in the wilderness. And then when he gets done, he goes and grabs a raw piece of liver and just like takes a bite out of it. Right. So I don't think that's how he really lives. It's as much as like
That's what he wants people to
persona
think.
kinda
Yeah.
deal.
yes,
Yeah.
it's a persona, right?
Yes.
So I think people like that spout that type of rhetoric, and people receive that and they do those things. So like this particular podcast, the Huberman Effect or whatever, I think it was Huberman Effect. They were, there's not a. I agree with you. They weren't saying like this is wrong, this is wrong, this is
Yeah.
right, this is right. Well, they were saying some things were wrong.
Well, there are some things that are wrong, but I mean, I think when I was kind of saying is more like you said, like it kind of comes down to like your genetics, what you enjoy, but there are like guidelines
Yes.
to not like, killing yourself slowly.
Right. So that was the thing that I was, intrigued about was the way they went about it is not normally the stuff I hear on other podcasts and on social media. What you hear is, okay, there's all these differings of opinions. There's all these different ideas, or the way people say it is so factual, so confident, like this is the way to get in shape, or
Yeah.
this is the way to eat, or this is the right way to do things. And oftentimes it's contrary to something else you literally just watched.
Yes.
And so for a lot of people, it's confusing.
Yeah, you can, find anything. You can find an all fish diet.
Yes.
And that's the best one. The Mediterranean diet.
Yep.
This is the best one. It's just
Keto, paleo, vegan, vegetarian, like
there's always someone that's
just
gonna,
what's the what carnivore.
Yeah, there's someone gonna, tout the how great it is.
Yes. Yes.
To each one of those, you just get differing opinions of this one's the greatest.
Right. So, it got me to thinking, and I think that for, because I coach a lot of people and they all come from different backgrounds and different concepts and ideas. And a lot of times, when we talk about running or fitness, the biggest thing a lot of people are challenged with is like understanding the concept of quality versus quantity. Making sure that there's kind of a purpose to each workout, and then training based off of what your ultimate goal is. And so, more does not always mean better. Harder does not always mean fitter. And so, but what we see and what we're reading and what we're deeming as, good information is so confusing to the average person out there because there are so many conflicting ideals
Yeah.
and thought processes.
I think there is something too where a lot of times we want to feel justified in how we're living.
Sure,
So sometimes
yeah.
people will hear, and I think that's a really big one that I see. People they'll listen for information, but they'll listen for the one thing that kind of justifies what they're already doing and what they feel happy doing, even if it's not the best thing for them. And they'll cling on to it for dear life and be like, nope, this person said this and we're going to run with it.
Have you ever done that? Do you feel like you've done that?
Fantasy football. I'll find someone that rates a player that I have. Yes, I agree with this
I agree with
opinion.
this
right?
one
Like,
individual.
This guy.
This is good. This guy's gonna be my guy.
Another expert will be like, don't don't listen, don't draft this guy. No, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm going with this opinion here,
Okay.
So that's always, one thing I'll laugh and find myself,
Yeah.
reaffirming that I have this player. Like, yep, he's going to do great.
Yep.
He
I'm
says
not the
it.
only insane person.
Yes,
Or
exactly.
I'm not insane.
No,
Yes.
McCaffrey's not going to get injured this year. I'm getting him.
Nice. We had a guy, we did a league a long time ago, and this guy got the first overall pick, and he picked Chad Pennington,
Ooh.
right? Immediately, I changed my team name to Chad P. first overall pick because it was so ridiculous. The entire room erupted in laughter.
Oh,
it was
nice.
so good. He obviously didn't do well that year. He didn't do well, but that was my team name for the rest of the years we played together.
No,
So-
you got to shame him.
Oh, for sure. Right.
I mean, there's still a guy. He drafted Limas Swede. He was a receiver for Pittsburgh, in the first round. And to this day, we'll still ask him, "You going to draft Limas Swede?"
Yeah. Who you getting? Who you getting? I guess I know. I bet you I know.
Yeah,
So, what about you, Lauren? Have you ever done? You feel like you've done that?
That's a silly question.
Why is that a silly
That's
question?
We've all seen me live. So, yes,
Okay.
I'm sure I've had situations that I can't think of off the top of my head. The only one I can is also, I guess, a gambling situation. My first time in a casino actually playing a table, and I had no idea what I was doing. I literally was just guessworking, and I had one person kind of telling me what to do, and then the guy next to me was an older individual who seemed wise based off his body language.
He was gonna say based off of his age and his
And
wrinkles.
his age and his body language. He seemed cool and collected. And so he would lean over and he would you should do this, don't listen to the guy next to you. I was like, okay, I clung on to everything he told me and I did not lose as much money as I could have probably. So it's fine. I didn't win necessarily, but I just didn't lose it all. So I'll take that win.
Take the win.
I'll take that.
Heartwarming story.
Thank you.
It is. Honestly, I'm inspired.
Don't gamble, people. It's
inspired.
really stress
Or if
inducing.
you do, listen to the old wise man next to you.
Listen to the old
Yes,
wise man at your
that's it.
table.
That's it. I was always told. I mean, I'm not really a gambler. I don't really. It's not that
I
I,
do
don't
not like it.
believe in gambling, but I was basically. It's not really gambling if you don't put out there what you can't afford to lose,
Correct.
right? So then it's not gambling. You're just playing, right?
Sure.
So it becomes gambling the moment you put more out there than you can afford to lose, right?
All right, here's the mortgage money. Let's,
Yeah,
let's
say, let it ride.
I'm a
Let it
baller on a
ride.
budget. To me, everything is. I can't afford to lose any of it.
In addition to that, I was also told you don't lend money to someone that you can't afford to never get back.
That
and
I
so
heard.
it's
True.
more like if you can afford to give it to them, just give it to them.
Yeah.
Right? Don't expect it back. It's not a loan, it's a gift, right? You're blessing them, you're helping them. Because the odds are you're probably not getting it back and it's going to ruin your relationship. So
No,
might as well,
resentment. Yeah, resentment
might as well
will-
just go ahead and say, you know what? May the Lord bless you and keep you. Take this money. So I've heard so many stories. I've had so many people in my life where they lent somebody money and then all they did was just complain about him for the next 30 years. Every time they saw him, they were like, oh. I was like, hey, man, you made the mistake, bro. I was like, you lent him how much money? I was like, if they couldn't get the bank to give it to him, what made you think they were going to pay you back that kind of money?
Yeah, that's scary.
That's insanity. So, but I think that's the thing with with fitness. To so many people, there are so many differing opinions and views and stuff like that out there. How do you know? How can you have faith that this thing that this person is saying is good information and will work?
Yeah, how to kind of filter everything.
Yeah, how do you filter that stuff, right? So you got the Liver King, you got knees over toes guy, right? You got what is it? I mean, now with the High Rocks, every time I turn around, there's a new trainer that's amazing. That's knows all the facts and knows how to do stuff.
Oh, absolutely. You'll see
They're popping up left and right,
four
bro.
different ski ERG forms.
Yes.
So this one person go crank down all the way.
Yes. High. Make sure you have a high strokes per minute, and then the next video is you don't want to have a high strokes per minute.
Yeah, it's you can go back and forth, like you said, find out what form you use. Yep, this person's right.
Yes,
exactly.
exactly.
Oh yeah, constantly. I would say a good way is, when I listen to a lot of other podcasts, I like to kind of do a little research on, especially before I start opening my big mouth, I will try to do some kind of research on whoever the guest was or whoever it is. What's their background in? How extensive does their knowledge go back? If they are some Joe Schmo that has had a microphone in the internet, I'm probably a little least, I'm going to take it with a grain of salt to some extent, but I try to find reputable sources when I'm listening to things. This person has a PhD and they're top of their field. They've been published this many times and they've been in the game for 20 plus years. I'm like, okay, that's probably a pretty good source to kind of like go off of. And I'll still kind of like research things if I'm not sure.
Well, I'm gonna not blow what you have set up, but I'm going to speak to that off of the podcast that was sent to me, the Huberman one.
Mm-hmm.
And they were saying that, okay, there were several PhDs, doctors,
Mm-hmm.
that they couldn't stand personally because they felt like they were giving out incorrect information and biased information. So they were talking about like some of these studies, it would be very possible. So let's say you're trying to do a study on like, is, Beyond Meat better than meat? Right. Okay. And so they pick, 20, 30 people, whatever, and they would put, a control group of each on each individual diet.
Yeah.
But what they would do is what they could do, rather, let me put it that way. What they could do is the people that were on the Beyond Meat diet, they could give them a really good diet. They could give them good options, good choices. They would obviously include the Beyond Meat, but they would give them the right amount of calories, right? And then the people who were on the other side who were eating meat, they could give them low quality beef or whatever it is. They could give them a bad diet. And so what would end up happening is it's obviously the numbers would be skewed in favor of the Beyond Meat because the study itself was biased. So sometimes sometimes you get, I guess, the tester bias, and then sometimes you could also get, other forms of bias where, okay, this company, Beyond Meat, I'm not saying they did this, but Beyond Meat said, hey, I want you to do this study. Here's this money, right? Take this money to go do the study, and it's, $100,000. They're
backing it up, then,
right?
I mean, you'll see like study, French fries are good for you once a week, funded
by McDonald's.
Yes,
McDonald's
exactly.
Corporation.
Right.
Okay.
So
this feels shady.
So like they were talking about how they've seen things maybe, and they've even been accused of those types of things, right? Because they've accepted money from, people to do studies and stuff. But like sometimes the PhD or whatever, maybe they're, how do I say this without, okay, I think this is a good way to put it. I had a client one time, an athlete, that I was training, and they were a doctor. Okay. And we were talking about, what it goes into being a doctor, and they were like, yeah, I was in school forever until I was like 35 or something, right? So I didn't work, I didn't do anything, I just went to school and lived, right? So I got student loans out my wahoo. And I was like, okay, great, man. So I was like, so you're a great doctor? He's like, well, and I was like, so you had good grades at this? Is like, well, to get a PhD, you just have to pass. They were very honest, And so I started thinking about that. I was like, so what you're telling me is that you could get a PhD and have been a horrible student, not studied, basically just done the bare minimums.
Just skate by.
And skate by until, with whatever the requirements are, and bam, PhD. Now, do you think that person is more qualified or just as qualified or better or more knowledgeable as, say, the person who was magna sum cum laude or whatever? They're like, top of their class. They went to Harvard or Yale or, John Hopkins, instead of this dude who went to freaking University of Phoenix, barely made it, and, got his freaking PhD mailed in.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Are you ready to unlock your full potential? I want to introduce you to the Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast, a powerful resource to transform your life today. With expert interviews, practical tips, and inspiring stories, this podcast is your roadmap to lasting wellness. Here's what a listener has to say.
I used to struggle with my health, but this podcast changed everything. It's like having a personal trainer, nutritionist, and life coach totally for free.
With over 2,000 five-star reviews, we're a podcast you can trust. The Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast, available now wherever you get your podcasts.
Can you imagine being about to go under surgery and like right before they give you the anesthesia, like you just like they mention, oh yeah, we did it in practice in school, but it didn't go so well. Then.
I don't know what I'm doing.
I still managed to pass.
Next doctor's visit, I'm asking for grades.
Yeah, I want to know your GPA.
Want that
The
transcript.
GPA,
Yeah.
just
I mean, there's a reason why malpractice insurance is a thing.
Yeah,
because there's plenty of people out there, I assume, that don't really do a very good job of what it is they're doing.
Absolutely. There was a whole podcast and a series called Dr. Death.
Yeah.
About a doctor that he was literally going around doing like spinal neck surgeries, and he had like no idea what he was doing. Like the bolts would like put people's bolts in, but just go into muscle, like
Yeah.
no bone or
Oh
anything.
my gosh.
It was
Oh my
scary,
gosh.
and it just how many.
This
cases,
is real?
You know, it's real.
Oh wow.
It was in Dallas.
Oh wow.
That sounds terrible.
It was a
That is insane.
scary. I mean, he operated on his best friend, and he like paralyzed him.
Oh my gosh. Well,
wow.
that
Yeah.
friendship did not probably end
Wow.
well.
Well, so that's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm saying is that
I understand what you're saying. Yes.
they might be credentialed.
Yes, they might technically be credentialed, doesn't necessarily know their really know their field.
Right.
And the other part of that can be like, especially when we're talking about like the human body, just in the last 15 years, we've learned so much
more coming out, yeah.
We're always hopefully if they're staying on top of their practice and they're like trying to always educate themselves on like new things, like the new studies and all that. Hopefully they're like always kind of evolving their own knowledge and practice.
Mm-hmm.
I have also met some, cases where that's not always the case. Like they're still basically handling like it's 1960. And I'm like, no, we'll get a little more fast forward in the times.
Well, I will say this too, that the more I feel like the science comes out, the more a lot of the things they were doing in the early, 20th century, like a lot of the old
Like leeches?
tried and true things. I don't know if they were using leeches in the early 20th century. I could be wrong. I don't know. Do you know that means like 1950?
I don't know. I don't know when they stopped using leeches. I
Yeah,
know
I
that in
don't
certain
know.
countries they still believe in using leeches.
They
but
might.
I don't know.
They might. I don't know. I don't
certain
know.
countries I know
I don't
they
know.
do,
But
but
I
I don't
wasn't
really
going
know.
like the leech direction. I was going more like lifting.
I went straight medieval.
Running easy.
Okay.
But the more they do these studies and they do this stuff, a lot of the training techniques and a lot of the theories have been around for over 100 years. And it's almost like they've proven through science and DNA and lactate threshold training and VO2 max training with all the new science that they have that, hey, this actually is the right way to train. And so it's like, okay, it's not like these guys just pulled this stuff out of their backside. They were training a certain way and they noticed. They basically use science, which science is just observation. So they use observation to see, hey, when we do more of this, we get a better result. When we do less of this, we get a worse result. So what I feel like people do nowadays is instead of looking at like, okay, here's what has helped me. This is what I've done well with. I should, adapt that, work on that, whatever. They look at what other people have done on social media or what other people they think, I guess is probably a better way to put it. They think they know what other people are doing and they mimic that, assuming they're going to get some sort of positive result.
High intensity workouts.
Yes.
Just making those gains.
Yes.
Every workout just is,
Those booty busters, those
Booty
waist
busters.
cinchers,
Yep.
all of
I
them.
was looking at some of Tia Claire Toomey's training and what have you. And if you look at like a lot of her stuff, you just see her she looks like she's just nonstop going hard, right? The CrossFitters, you see all these workouts they're doing. People don't look at they don't realize it's a 5 or 10 minute workout, right? They don't realize they're spreading it out all over the day, right? They're doing 1, 2, or 3 workouts a day, but they're like little short workouts. But then I was watching her talk, and she was talking about her Hyrox training. And she's like, yeah, I'm not lifting as heavy as I was because I'm doing a lot more run training. And they were like, well, how much are you running? She's like, oh, I'm running like 60 or 70 kilometers a week. Okay. So that means she's running like 30, 40 miles a week.
Yeah.
Well, when people are watching her training and they're seeing it online, they're just assuming she's just gripping it and ripping it all day.
Yeah.
And all of her speed and strength is coming from lifting heavy and pushing sleds and doing skiers, at maximum effort. They are not looking to see that, oh, that's just a small portion of another, what is that? Probably another, if we're running like 30, 40 miles, that's another 10 hours or so of training, a week. So that's probably the bulk of her training, time-wise, is being implemented in a very low intensity, high volume type activity. And the very small portion is being, in relative to time, is being invested in like the hard threshold, tough efforts.
Which you always talk about, the 80-20 rule.
Right. So, I think to, kind of help people, hopefully it's helpful, is, okay, how do we disseminate what's good information, right? How do we know what do we implement? And then for us, I think the biggest thing, kind of going back to what I stated about the podcast I'd listened to, is what's sustainable?
Yep.
What do you enjoy, right? What is something that you like?
Yeah.
And then ultimately, what's going to work best for you, right? So your genetics, your body type, your goal, whatever it is you're doing. I think those 3 things are the things you want to really focus on when you're trying to disseminate. Is this good information or is this something I can use? And also disseminate whether, this is actually legitimate. Like, you should eat carbs, you shouldn't eat carbs. Because there's definitely two different camps on that, right?
Oh, 100%.
And you should eat, they said something that blew my mind. The one guy who was more like, he was like plant-based or what have you, he was like, the average American gets enough protein on a daily basis. Now, that statement, very blanketed, saying that, I do not agree with that at all.
100% no.
I just think about my own daily, and I know he's saying the average, but I'm just thinking about myself. I'm like, I know I am not getting anywhere near
Well, now,
the right
understand
amount.
it's average.
It is the
right?
average.
It's not the
so, yeah,
athlete, right?
yeah.
So maybe the requirement might be different. But then he went through this whole explanation of it. And when he broke it down, it made a little more sense because here's how he went into it. He said basically that, the recommendation is, I think it was 0.66, 0.67 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Okay. Well, I weigh 185 pounds. So for me, if I did one like that per kilogram, it's 55, 60 grams of protein a day. That's like a piece of chicken.
Yeah.
That's a big piece of chicken, right? It's some steak.
Almost a protein shake.
Yeah. That's like a protein shake and a yogurt.
Yeah, I feel like I'd be deteriorating.
Yeah, I'd be falling. I feel like I'd die. I couldn't survive on that, right? I need more calories than that.
That's lunch for me. So,
And so, as he was going through it and talking about it, he was saying they'd done some tests. And in those tests, it was a crazy story. It was so nuts. He was basically I guess at the school he went to, they had this room when he went there and he was, it was in college, and they had a room. It was called the Penthouse. And he's like, "Oh, have you been to the Penthouse?" And he's like, "No." He's like, "You've got to go up to the Penthouse." They did and they told him this crazy story about, there were these conscientious objectors in the 60s that didn't want to go to Vietnam. And so they said, okay, well, instead of going to Vietnam War, if you agree to do this study, then you don't have to go. And so these volunteers would come in, and they would basically put them in these blue jumpsuits, and they were, for the most part, and all intents and purposes, they were like prisoners in this room, and they couldn't leave the room, and they would basically feed them different kinds of foods and different things, and then measure nitrogen levels. And so the nitrogen levels basically has to do with the amount of protein you're processing and your body's actually utilizing. And so basically they came to the, I'll try to make a long story short, they came to the conclusion that the need, because basically anything over this, a lot of these people were burning excess off through nitrogen, right, was about 0.67 grams per kilogram of body weight. Okay. Now, obviously, these guys weren't very active. Mm-hmm. They're sitting in a room, right?
Prisoners.
It was men, too. It wasn't ladies included in this study, right? So it was, it wasn't and it wasn't a huge
sample
of individuals.
Yeah.
And so the other guy, the Huberman guy, he was like, well, I usually get, because there was a doctor that came on to his show before, and she suggested that athletes get around 1 gram of protein per lean mass pound of body weight, right? So, if I weigh 180 pounds and I'm 10% body fat, well, then, that would be 160 something grams of protein I need to get in a day, minimum, somewhere around there. So those are very different numbers.
Absolutely.
I mean, those are far exceedingly big numbers. But for him, he brought up the point that he's had, gone to all these conventions, talked to a lot of doctors, and he says he asked them all, right? Because he's like, do you have vegans? Do you have vegetarians or whatever? And he's like, have you ever had anyone come in and they had a protein deficiency? And he's like, in all my years, I've never had one person that has raised their hand, one doctor that has raised their hand and said that they've had someone come in with a protein deficiency. Right? So the average American is getting enough protein. But the average athlete, the average person trying to gain lean muscle mass, the average person trying to meet a certain calorie requirement to have the energy levels necessary to sustain muscle mass and to sustain energy, is that really going to be enough for that individual? So ultimately what he said was true, but does that ultimately apply to everyone? No.
Yeah.
Correct? So I think but nobody knows that. I mean, I say nobody knows that. The average person doesn't know that, right? Now, I think a lot of people are like, okay, yeah, I should get I think most people, if you ask them, how much protein you should get, what would they probably say?
100 grams or something.
Okay. They just pick an arbitrary number?
Yeah.
Okay.
They probably wouldn't give a number, the average person. I think I get enough.
Okay.
What they would say. They wouldn't, because when I would do like intro sessions with people for personal training, I'd literally sit down and ask them, how much protein do you eat? And they're like, I think enough. And I was like, well, do a quick calculation, and it's usually kind of close to the lean muscle mass is usually what I would go with. And I would sit down, talk with them, and okay, what do you eat throughout the day? Let's just go through your list. And most of the time, generously, I'd give them 50 or 60 grams.
Yeah.
Most of the time, just, I had a
Which,
coffee.
according to the scientist, they are getting what
it's recommended.
what they need.
Yeah, the 0.66.
Right.
So then I would kind of show them, they eat a muffin and coffee, and then just maybe one piece of like protein throughout the day. And so it would always almost shock them when you kind of give them the number. This you need to be eating, double that, 130 grams. And so it's not very hard when you kind of plan it out. Just a lot of people don't realize that.
Well, and so I think the thing is, to that point is, if you have a certain goal in mind, I think that's what you have to start with. You have to start out, where am I trying to go? What is my ultimate goal? What is my, if I'm a runner, am I trying to run a half marathon, a full marathon? Am I an ultra runner? Am I trying to run a 5K? Well, your nutritional needs or your fitness needs, what you're going to do, are going to all start or stem from what the ultimate goal is.
Yeah.
And so if you are going to run, say, a half marathon or a marathon, well, you need energy to complete any activities you're going to do to prepare for that. Well, calories basically are just energy, calories. That's what that's for, right? And so the quality of those calories can depend on how you sustain mass, how you have energy levels, and how you ultimately will perform. And so when I say the quality of those calories, is basically like, what are the macronutrients of those calories? Proteins, fats, and carbs. And so if you understand that your body metabolizes carbs more readily when you're doing, higher activity workouts like threshold to, aerobic efforts, then you need a certain amount of those calories need to be from carbohydrates. Well, in addition to that, if you're doing technically running is a strength training activity. It's resistance because you're pounding the ground.
Yeah.
You are developing muscle. It's not like powerlifting or lifting a bunch of weights, but there is a strength element to it.
Yeah. You're repetitively engaging these muscles to keep going through a movement.
Right. So
a big fuel requirement.
So there is a big fuel requirement, and there's also a need for your body to replenish whatever muscle you're breaking down. And if you don't get enough of that based off of what your new requirement is, well, then your body will start metabolizing muscle. It'll start breaking down, which is why I think oftentimes there are so many skinny fat runners, So, nutrition, I think, is one of the hardest, but probably one of the more important things you want to focus on if you're going to get the best overall performance. And then ultimately look your best, I think, as well. Because everybody, let's be honest, I don't care who it is. If you're working out, people want to look good too.
Yeah, absolutely.
You want to definitely be able to look in the mirror and see the results. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
worth something.
It's cool to be faster, right?
Yes.
But
we're human.
ultimately,
we like looking good.
You want a certain physique based off of what you're putting into, the effort that you're putting in.
So, being athletic, you want to look athletic.
There you go.
So
That's
kind of
it. Yeah, good way to put it.
Just kind of what you were saying, kind of on, say you're training for a race, you wouldn't want to do like a bodybuilder cut. Now your calorie deficit when when your goal is
carbs.
you're dropping carbs, trying to get really nice and lean with that bodybuilder cut, but your goal is to run faster. Say you have a marathon or half marathon, it would be what would you say? Contradicting yourself, not be really focusing on that, what you said, specific goal of running where you're trying to look good, but you're hurting your performance.
Right. So I think there's a fine balance. There's the flip side of it too. This is on the other side. I know my friend over here is probably not going to co-sign this on me, but you've got maybe people who are I'm not going to say little, people who are overweight, right? Or obese or what have you. And, there's been a movement where you're beautiful just the way you are, right? And be fat and happy, and you can be whatever. And you can be a runner, and there's not like a prototypical look to be an athlete. So you don't have to be, you can be round and be a runner. You can be skinny and you can be a runner. You can be this and be a runner. And all of that is 100% true. But does that also mean that you should be satisfied with that? Are you the best runner you can be? Are you the healthiest you can be? Are you setting yourself up for longevity by sustaining that type of lifestyle because it's okay for you to be larger and run? Is that the best thing for you? And I think sometimes with the way people say things, to go back to your point of, we hear things to justify what we're doing.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's what ends up happening. And so people are like, oh, well, look at her. Everybody follows her. And she says it's okay for me to be 150 pounds overweight and still run. That's right.
There,
Fat and sassy runner.
Well, okay, I don't like. Okay, well, two.
here, hold on. Let me scoot the soapbox. I feel like coming.
Give me my
is it
box.
coming?
It's coming. I
It's
feel
Give me
coming?
my
it's
box.
coming.
No, hang on. I'm trying to
Here it
like.
comes.
So I can see where yes, you'd think I'm going to get like on a soapbox about this to some extent.
I didn't say you soapbox. He said
I
that.
said it.
Well, I do believe that it is not my place to ever make somebody feel bad about themselves. Like, that's not my place. That's not what I want. I never want someone to feel bad. Do I believe that we should treat our bodies the best way we can so that they do what they're meant to do and they live long lives? 100%. The science backs that up. So I would never, if someone ever said like, am I the healthiest if I weigh like, if I'm 50 pounds overweight? No, you're not the healthiest. But I'm not going to sit here and call you like nasty names and like tell you what you should do. Like, you need to come to that on your own, but I will be here to guide you and support you when you're ready. And I'm not going to make you feel bad about how your life is, because that's ultimately your choice. That's where I stand.
Oh, we don't promote bullying.
I'm-
I think what James was saying, it's a slippery slope.
It can be, for
to
sure.
To say you love yourself, which you should always be, positive to yourself.
For sure.
But if you're overweight, you should also be, on a health, not saying you have to be, but if you love yourself, you would think you would be on a health journey to get to a healthy weight. I mean, yes, loving yourself, but then if you're at a heavier weight, you're doing a disservice, because that, could lead to diabetes, heart issues. So it's kind of,
100%.
it's like you said, you don't want to be, like you said, shame anyone.
I would never want to bully
But you want to
someone.
encourage them, and it's almost like the opposite. If you see someone heavy, they're like, I'm not working out to make myself look better. So it's almost like a negative people put on it, someone heavy or working out.
Yeah.
With just because, you don't love yourself.
Well, that's the other, and that has become the new topic, is
Yeah.
like people who are heavier. There's been a lot of them who have decided to lose weight, albeit some of them and not in a healthy way. But people who've decided to try to lose weight, people think it's a cop-out. I'm like, it's not a cop-out to like want to always be your best self and to want to take care of your body. There's never a cop-out to that. I'm never a fan of bullying. I'm never a fan of fat shaming or shaming, period. But
Except
I have...
car driving. We can shame car drivers.
No, we don't shame. We are not bullies here, Carlos. We
Bad
love and
car
accept.
drivers?
Bad. Stop
Okay.
it. But I will say, I've speaking of cars, so I really hate that you said that, because it's gonna.
Okay, go.
I think I have used this analogy before. Like, sometimes we have to remember that our bodies are like our vessels; they are our vehicles through life. You would not hopefully ignore all the check engine lights. You would hopefully not ignore when your car needs a tune-up, the tires are low, the oil needs changing. You should treat your body the same way. Like, you should do everything to keep the car running as long as possible and get the best mileage out of it, not hopefully be driving a one-wheeled, saggy, sad,
Coughing car.
coughing
I
car. Why?
I immediately started thinking, like, have you checked your oil lately, or is your check engine light on?
We are not about bullying here,
I'm
James.
just, what time is this?
Well, I want to
In the-
make sure you understand this.
I actually am due
I
for an oil
agree with you.
change.
I agree with what a lot of what you're saying. Yes, and I would also say this, that it's not bullying, in my opinion, to encourage people to make lifestyle changes. I mean, that's what my whole life is. My entire life is to help people find a better way, like in everything that I do, whether it's in the gym, whether it's in fitness and running, or whether it's at church, right? I believe that I was put on this earth not to tell people what to do or how to do things, but, I believe that I was put on this earth to help teach people, like, that if there is something better, that you can have an opportunity and there's a way to it. And that once you see that and you understand it, then obviously the onus is on you. I'm not going to like shame you because you don't want to run or you don't want to work out or you don't want to go to church or something like that. I mean, how does that encourage anybody? It's never going to encourage anybody. There's a scripture, and it talks about like our words and how we say things and what we say. And it basically says to this, like, let your words be, don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, but let everything that you say be beneficial for building people up. And so if what I am saying is beneficial, well, that means it's leading you into a good place. The challenge, I feel like, so much for a lot of our culture and people today is because of all of these identity crises people have and all of these the social media sways back and forth and just these huge shifts, is that people don't truly know the difference between encouragement, correction in a positive way, right, and bullying. Like, bullying has become like a very specific word that I don't think it means what you think it means. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's
become like overused and it's lost its meaning. To some
I think
extent.
so. Like, or it's the, like, what really is bullying has been like overhyped to so many other things, right? It's been like, there's been saturation where, like, if you don't agree with me, it's bullying, right?
Like, just say you don't understand something, then you're kind of considered you're what would you say, against these people or something. If you just say I don't understand,
or I don't agree, then I
agree.
hate that person and then I'm a bully.
Yeah,
and that's unfair, I think, honestly. And I think what ends up happening is you become guilty of doing the exact thing that you're accusing like someone else of doing.
Sure.
You know, and so I think when it comes to these types of things, these sensitive issues, because confidence, I think, is a big part of athletics specifically, especially if you're going to be racing. You have to be confident, but so many people are not super confident because they don't know. They don't know what is the right way, and maybe they've tried a bunch of different things and they've all didn't work.
Yeah,
they tried keto, and keto worked for a little while, but it's not sustainable, and so they got off of it when they were done, and then all of a sudden they're bigger than they were before, right? Or they gained more fat or something like that, right?
That 30 pounds they lost is now they've gained 40.
Or they go out and they're like, you know what? I'm going to use running. I'm going to go run a marathon, and that's going to help me lose weight. And they start running, and they end up losing some weight,
Yep.
but then they end up hurting their knee or their ankle or something.
Super common.
And then they stop, and then what happens? They don't work out or do anything. They gain it back.
Weight again. They get like this bad taste of like, oh, I'll never do it
I
again.
can't
It's bad
run.
for me.
Running's bad for you.
Running is bad for you. It's just gonna break you down, And so I think having an understanding of, what fitness really is, or what it could be for you, I think, will help that. And just learning and realizing that it's a journey, and it's not an overnight thing. It's not a quick thing, and consistency will pay the biggest dividends over the extended period of time.
And so kind of coming back to the question that you asked earlier, for you specifically, about when you're getting all these podcasts, you're listening to all this stuff, how do you decipher what information is really worth taking to heart and maybe applying versus like questionable?
I do think credentials is a great place to start, right? So, I mean, if you've got a doctor or PhD behind your name, you've obviously put in some sort of effort and work into to earn the knowledge that you have. Doesn't mean that you are necessarily the expert,
Sure,
right? But you should have knowledge, and that's where I would start. So I think that was, I agree with you on that. And then I look at, okay, what is the fruit? So, there's a, kind of an idiom in church or in, religion or whatever that says that, you're not who you are based off of what you say, but based off of what your fruit is, So I'm not going to run around and tell you I've grown an apple tree in my backyard, and then you run in my backyard and there's lemons all over the floor, right? That I didn't grow an apple tree, yo. You would probably argue with me on that. Yes,
he helped grow another coach right here.
Yes,
I am his fruit.
you're the fruit. Yes, you're the fruit.
If you ever grew any kind of tree in your backyard and you claimed about what it was, I would be the first one back there checking on that
Of
tree.
course, right?
The first
It
one.
would
So-
be, yellow,
sorry.
yellow fruit in there.
What
That's a
kind of
lime.
apple
That's
is
a lime.
it?
She would just
Yeah. She would want to know the exact kind of apple.
What
Yes.
kind of apple? Is it Lady Crisp or is it Granny Smith? And then I would get back there and I would tear you apart.
Yeah, and if the tree grew, even if it was an apple tree,
scared now.
but there were no apples on it.
You're not doing it right.
Exactly. So it's more about your fruit. And so if these podcasts are on there and they're talking and there's no they have no proof, like they don't have testimonies or stories where they can talk about other people. It's all just academic. It's all just like, okay, here are the numbers, here's this. Well, then that doesn't lead a ton of credence because, you haven't actually put it into practice, and so that's going to be another thing. And then I'm not going to lie, if they just sound like a moron and it's boring as crap, I may not even make it far enough to figure out if they're.
I think I've sent you a podcast and I asked you if you enjoyed it and you said I turned it off because it was boring. It was a while back. It was like a while back.
Yeah, and I think I know which one it was. It was probably one of the Rick Roll ones you sent me, I think. Because you sent me a lot of him.
No, it wasn't him. It was someone else. I love Rick Roll.
I know. So, but he's very, to each their own.
To each their own.
He's obviously very popular.
Yes.
A lot of people love listening
his
to
book.
them, right? And that's fine. That's great.
His book is awesome.
That's the great thing. It goes back to sustainability, preferences, right? So, he just has a very monotone voice, and he talks very softly.
That's nap time.
And every time I listen, I just want to fall asleep.
See, I think I like the kind of more monotone because I feel like everything, there's so much noise. I'm like, I need someone who's very like.
And I can understand that. I get that. So, but the thing I think for me is he has long, awkward pauses. Y'all know how I feel about long, awkward pauses.
We don't believe in them.
I did not yell at anybody.
I got scared.
Oh my god.
We don't believe in long, awkward pauses here. We belong in filling the space.
If Lauren doesn't answer in 0.2 seconds, I'm jumping in. So I'm on the coffee in me. I'm ready to roll this week.
I'm ready to rock and roll.
Ready to rock and roll.
So, but I mean, that's what I would say is, what's the proof? I actually listened to one today, and there's a comedian guy. It's like
Is it the Spartan?
All my notes are over there.
Is it
I
the
need
Spartan?
them. No, it's not a Spartan one. It's like it's a group of comedians. Okay. One has a mustache. He's from New York. There's another guy. He's like Middle Eastern, Arabian or something that's on the panel.
Oh.
There's two other guys, a black guy and then like a redheaded dude. And they're all comedians.
That sounds like the start of a joke.
And I know it does, right? And they all walked into a bar, right?
That's it.
But they're all comedians, and they'll have guests come on,
okay,
and they'll talk or what have you. And then there's the main guy is the guy with the mustache, and he's a comedian.
Is he Asian?
No.
It's not the guy I'm thinking of.
No, it's not what you're thinking. It's not Bobby Lee. It's not that.
Okay, so I'm thinking about the podcasts and stuff.
No, but they were talking to this guy, and it was like, and their podcast is completely like random stuff, right? It's a lot like Joe Rogan's.
It's not that Theo guy, is it?
Not Theo Vaughn. No, not him. No,
okay.
He's some random stuff too.
It's kind of random there.
Yeah. But it's like that, right? And they make a lot of jokes, and very secular, right? It's not like a Christian thing or anything like that. But they had like a biblical scholar on,
okay,
and they were asking him all these questions, and like it was not a hostile environment because you could tell that they were really curious.
They were asking questions that they did not like really relate to,
and maybe things they didn't understand,
sure,
right?
Okay.
And things that didn't make a lot of sense to them because there was like one guy was a Hindu, one guy was like Catholic, one guy was agnostic, and one guy was like, I'm Christian-esque, right? It's Christian adjacent is kind of what he said, and but they were asking real legitimate questions, that they weren't trying to, and they were trying to be funny a lot, but like they weren't trying to make fun, they weren't trying to they were really trying to ask questions. And he did such an amazing job of like answering their questions in a non-condescending way, in a very informational way, and providing the history and the context and everything. It was so good, the way he did it, and it was very conversational rather than confrontational.
Like all the news channels.
Yes,
have both sides on. It's just a yelling match.
Exactly, but it was very much a conversation. And yes, that's it. Flagrant. That's
Flagrant
it.
with Andrew Schulz.
Yes.
Flagrant with Andrew Schulz.
Flagrant.
I know I've seen him on Instagram. He's funny.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're dropping F-bombs and cussing and everything. And this guy's, he is a historian, but he has his knowledge about he's been to like, seminary, whatever. So he has a ton of knowledge of like the history of the Bible and the history of like just history in general. But they were talking, they were asking him all these questions like, is Christmas real or is it pagan, and the Hindu guy was asking questions. He's like, so is there something like in Hinduism, there's like this matrix idea where like, there's all these different ways and all this whatever, and this is reality and stuff. He's like, no. But he went into it. It was so good. But as he was speaking, you could, just from the way he was, number one, passionate about what he was talking about, but he was very knowledgeable, and the stuff that he said could be fact-checked. So it wasn't his opinion. It wasn't like this. He says, basically what he was saying is, my opinions have been formed from what I have studied and learned and how I put it into practice. And so that's why this is what I believe. And so more often than not, that was how the Huberman was too. They had two different opinions and they were debating.
Yeah.
Right. But they came to a point where it was basically like, okay, listen, hey, I respect that sustainability. I respect that preference. And you are right. That will work for you. So even though it's not what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And even though it was different for me, that will work for you. And it probably could work for me, but I just don't like meat.
Yeah.
That was the bottom line. I'm not a big fan of meat. And so there's plenty other ways I could get protein, get the calories I need. I might have to eat larger quantities. I might have to be a little more, eat more often, right? Or I may not have as many calories that I'm going to attain as you. Obviously, they were two different body types.
Okay.
One guy was much smaller. One guy was like 150. The other guy was like 210.
Sure.
Right?
Guess which one's which?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, right? And so, but it wasn't, like I said, it was a great debate that was conversational, not confrontational. And so in the space of social media influencers and, talking heads on the CNN and Fox and all the other stuff, everything is always confrontational. If you don't agree with me, you are wrong. And no one else can be right unless you agree with what it is that I'm saying. And I think that leaves you in a pretty dangerous situation, because what ends up happening is you can't learn anything.
Yeah.
And if you can't learn anything new, well, like you said, there's always new things coming out.
I would say always be open to information. Always be willing to learn and hear something that might be contradictory to what you have believed.
Right. So, that's what I look for, right? I look for, can you speak about what you're talking about intelligently? And can you be called on the carpet on it? Can somebody question you and you not immediately get
defensive and
threatened and defensive? That's usually my opinion.
Okay.
My opinion. Okay. To me, if I hear that, if I'm watching something or listening to a podcast, in my opinion, that means that you are not very confident in what it is that you believe.
Or yelling.
Yes, exactly. Yelling. It's like you immediately it's like the what's that dinosaur on Jurassic Park?
It's like
Dilophosaurus.
Whatever it was
is
called.
that really what it is?
No, he's just shutting
I'm pretty no.
Is
Alex is
I would say his son is a massive dinosaur guy.
I'm going to defer to you, sir.
Yeah, I'm just trust me, when that kid was 4, he could spell out all the dinosaur names. And yeah, he was.
But that's what I picture.
Yes.
That's what I picture. It's instead of me saying something that sounds logical and analytical and give you a testimony, I'm just going to and then go crazy.
That tar acid comes out.
And then spit in your face.
Can I just say that of all the information that Carlos could possibly bring to this podcast, that is some information I'm so glad
Hey, man, you just legitimize this. This is what I'm saying.
That's it.
We bring out random stuff and we know about what we're talking about, right?
Bring up dinosaurs.
Yeah, I'm not going to be fact-checking that, though, so I'm just going to go with that.
I will believe you.
Someone in the audience, please check it out, but I'm pretty sure.
What do we say if you say it with enough confidence and
That's
they
it.
will believe?
And that is the thing. Everybody says everything with so much confidence. You're maybe that is true.
Yeah, they sound so sure about it. Of course they know what they're talking about.
And then if they have a certain look to them
then
that
of
is
course
appealing
they know.
to you, right?
Yeah.
Then you're automatically drawn
especially
to that.
in the fitness, especially in fitness. If you see someone who is jacked and they say, well, you do this.
You should eat liver?
You should eat liver. You should do exactly what I say and you'll look like me. Then they must know what they're talking about. And so often, not all the time, but so often, those people are doing so many other things that they are not being transparent about to get the way they look.
Yes.
Because it's not what sells.
Yeah.
I worked with a guy, and I learned a lot of stretching from him. And he was a little bit bigger guy. But you could see, and he'd start doing stretches. He could almost do the splits.
Yeah,
very limber. And,
Yeah.
But if you looked at him, you're like, that guy's not in. I don't be me, not in shape, or didn't look like the typical, like you
He's
said,
not what you'd expect.
bodybuilder
Yeah.
as a trainer kind of deal. But he was knowledgeable on any sort of stretching, and himself, he was very flexible. So it's.
Did I ever tell you the story about when I was boxing and the guy that came up to me to give me tips? Did I ever tell you about that?
No.
So you guys know that at one point in time I had a fight club.
Yes,
We don't talk about it.
No, that was actually rule number 1. You talk about Fight Club. Because we wanted to let everybody know, we got a Fight Club. You want to come join?
In the living room.
In the living room, yes. My wife's probably a season in my life that was the least favorite of my wife's. But when we first started, we would go to the YMCA. And because they had punching bags, they had a speed bag, and they had space, right? So we could go and do jump ropes or do whatever. And so when we first started, we were in there and we were like doing some shadow boxing. We do like some circuits and stuff, like jump rope, hit the heavy bag and stuff. And my friend Dustin and I were doing it. And this dude walks up to us in the middle of one of our training sessions. And this guy was like probably 6'3", 6'4", big old black dude. And he was big, like not just big, tall, but
Like
big,
big
wide.
guy.
This guy was overweight. He looked like, I wouldn't say he didn't look like he never worked out. I feel like you couldn't have that kind of size without like some kind of physical activity.
Maybe a football player in his past life.
Yeah, like a lineman.
Like a lineman.
Yeah,
or
like
something
just an
huge.
O lineman, just a big old huge guy that ate a lot, right? But he didn't.
They
He
say
was
country strong.
Country strong. I
Exactly.
like
That's
that.
good. That's good. But he didn't look like he was like fit, right? And if I said, "Hey, bro, let's go play a game of basketball or something," he wasn't going to make it more than maybe 1 or 2 times down the court. And the last thing I would have thought of was that he was going to be a good boxer. So he walks up and he starts giving me tips. Both of us. We didn't even ask. It was unsolicited. This bro comes up. He's like, "Yeah, man, when you box, you should be doing this." He's like, "Oh, yeah, you got to do this too." And he's giving me all these tips or whatever about holding his hands and boxing and
That's
everything.
like the old school 1920s
I
boxing.
know, right?
That's- Okay.
So, but all these tips he was giving me, and the whole thing, I'm looking at this clown, and I'm like, "Fool, you don't know what you're talking about." I was like, "You got like a 20-inch reach on me. You could knock me out just by barely touching me because I weigh like 145
All that
pounds."
weight behind it.
I was like, "But I'd fight you right now just to find out." That's what I was thinking in my head.
Oh, okay.
I didn't say this out
Oh,
loud 'cause
okay. I
he's
was
bigger
like-
than me. What am I going to say? This dude knocked me out,
I think
right?
David and Goliath.
But like as he's talking to us, I'm looking at my friend and he's looking at me, and we're just like locked eyes, and I could tell what he was thinking too.
Oh, no.
And so I was like, okay, maybe he knows more than we do because we don't know anything.
Okay.
We were just learning, but he doesn't know enough and doesn't practice it enough that he should be teaching anybody else because he obviously wasn't living the life. He wasn't like his advice was not something he took himself.
Do as I
Okay.
say, not as I do.
Exactly. And so he may, and probably, I mean, just from some of the terms that he used, he had a higher knowledge of what it was that we were starting to learn
Yeah.
than we knew.
Okay.
But if we had listened to him instead of investigating more, talking to other people who actually knew what they were doing, like Trey, stuff like that, then we would have gone down a path, the wrong path,
Yeah.
and wasted a lot of time instead of improving and getting better. So he was an expert to us because he knew more than us,
Yeah.
but his information was not great and it was not leading us in a direction we wanted to go. And the proof for me at the time was this dude visually was not practicing what he was preaching. Now, that may sound very biased. It may sound very mean and judgy, right? Very, very judgy.
Yeah.
But you got to make judgments. And I feel like I made a good one.
The story did not really go the way I thought it was going to go.
How do you think it was going to go?
I was, when you were like started talking about some guy, I'm thinking like some Joe Truglio character, like the everything you got guy, like coming up and then like decking somebody.
I thought James was going to say he fought him and then lost to him.
That I
kinda-
lost to him?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought
No.
I thought y'all were gonna get lose to
No.
a person. I also would like to know, why are we not still doing this Fight Club?
I will.
Let's, Jesus.
First off, I cannot participate. I'm old and I don't want to get hit in the face.
Same.
And Gabby will not allow any.
Have you ever been hit before? Lauren? I just want to make sure they
fist
know
or
what I'm
open
talking
fist? Closed fist, open fist. Doesn't matter.
to. Either one.
Yes. I've been slapped.
You've been slapped. Okay.
I've been slapped a couple times.
Across the face? Where?
Across the face.
Okay.
And up the back of the head.
Okay. So being slapped across the face or slapped in the back of the head
That was
is
a dumb
nothing
question.
like
That was a
getting
dumb
punched in the jaw with a clenched fist.
Well, that's why I need someone to teach me how to dodge the punches.
Yeah. But the thing about fighting, and oh my God, one of my favorite speeches of all time, not one of my favorite Rocky movies, but one of my favorite Rocky speeches is the one, I think it's in Rocky 4 or 5, and he's talking to his son. And he's like, life is not about how hard you can hit.
It's about how hard you can get hitting. No, it's about
Yeah.
It's how hard you can get hit and keep going.
Exactly.
I know the quote.
Good. I'm glad.
It's a good one.
But how great you can throw a punch is great, but you gonna get hit, right? And I think that's one of the boxing like idioms is everybody's got a plan until they get hit, and you're gonna get hit in boxing, right? So you've got to learn, how to take a hit. You got to learn obviously how to move and all that good stuff, how to breathe and everything. So, but the moment you get, that's what ended my boxing career.
Getting hit.
We were sparring a lot and we were doing it or whatever. And I sparred, Trey asked if he could spar with us once.
Oh, I would not
right?
fight Trey.
And he's so fast and he's an actual, he's a trained boxer. He trains like professional boxers.
Yeah.
And we get in there and he didn't have headgear and I did, right? And he just kept jabbing me over and over and over. And I've got a big nose. So my nose hung out of the gear. So every time he would hit me with that jab, it would just right on my nose, just like, and I couldn't see because my eyes were watering so much from getting hit in the nose over and over and over again. And I was like, hold on. He's like, dude, we just started. I was like, no, you keep hitting me. He's like, yeah, that's kind of the point, bro. I couldn't move fast enough to not get hit. I just kept my hands up the whole time. And we had been fighting. We'd like been doing it for a while, and I thought I was getting pretty good. No. And then
I would never, ever, ever fight Trey.
The next round, my friend fought another guy that came for the first time. And like Dustin, when he danced around, he thought he was like freaking Muhammad Ali. And he's like, doing stupid stuff and being goofy. And he freaking did this thing with his arm, like being goofy. And he freaking jabbed this guy because he's also left-handed, right? So he's a southpaw. And he caught the guy off guard, right? Well, when he caught the guy off guard, the guy kind of like got a little whatever. And Dustin, like he had really great reflexes. He automatically was going to hit him with the 1-3 punch. And he goes jab and then comes underneath with the uppercut, and hit him right here on his chin. The dude immediately just like collapsed. That was the end of Fight Club. Then and there.
That's how Fight Club ended?
That's how it ended because I couldn't see anymore because my eyes were watery from getting hit in the nose, and we almost knocked some dude out. I was like, okay, I think I'm done.
One thing I'm glad about is we have video for this. I've never seen Lauren have pure happiness when you were talking about getting hit in the face. She was like gleefully, like just smile like a kid at Christmas, just hearing a story. Just pure, like the smile. We have video of it.
We do.
It's
and I think the only thing that would have made it better is if she could have been there in person.
Oh, no, she's like, I've never, like, just pure happiness on her face.
I don't want to see my friends get hit, but I would have loved to have seen this, like, uppercut. And
I mean, I didn't get the uppercut.
Honestly, the fact that you got in a ring with Trey, to me, is like, why?
Yeah. So
it's Trey.
So the point I was making is that, when...
I don't want to watch you get hit.
When I'm deciphering, like, whether it's good information or bad information, there's multiple factors, right? But the biggest thing, I think, more than anything is like, can I listen to this person spouting whatever they're spouting without getting angry? And if I can't, I'm done. Even if what they're saying might be good, I don't know. I'd stop. And I'm sure, I mean, that's what you do a lot of times, right? Like if somebody says something and it like gets under your skin, right? It makes your nerves crawl.
If you say something, that is.
I'm not saying me particularly. Just anybody.
No. In general, that's probably one of my toxic traits. If someone says something that like really gets under my skin and rubs me, I will start to tune you out. Even if like you said, if the information's good, if you've offended me or someone I think you shouldn't offend, I will shut down.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll listen long enough to try to see, okay, is there anything reputable about it? But if they just keep spouting the same rhetoric and there's no like facts or anything to back it up. I mean, this was a perfect example. Mm-hmm. The one that I was sent, like it started off, I was like, I'm not going to like this. This is stupid. Oh my God, here we go. Vegan. Because it was a vegan who sent it to me basically, right? Yes. I was like, oh, here's your justification. You're going to tell me this is why I'm fat. And I listened to it and I gave it a chance. And the more it kept going, the more I was intrigued. Mm-hmm. And even though some of the things they were saying were contrary to maybe my opinion, mm-hmm. Or the way I might want to do things or encourage other people to do them, it was steeped in science, fact, and testimony.
Yeah.
So there was definitely like proof in what it was they were saying. Maybe it doesn't apply to everybody because of their particular situation or goals, but there was definitely truth in it. And so if there's truth in it, then the truth should be able to be provable. If there's not truth in it, then usually pretty quickly you can disseminate that it's not true. And so I think that is the thing we've got to be able to learn how to investigate, is that when we see somebody, saying something online or we see some sort of training, right? We want to see the whole picture, not just a small snippet. And we want to figure out and find out, is there real truth in it? Or is there just like kernels of truth?
Flash.
Yes, because I mean, to an extent, you can almost take anything and put a little bit of truth in it.
Sure.
And like have a point to it. Whereas if it's just true, it's just true. No matter how you dissect it, no matter what you do about it, however you break it down, this is the truth. Whereas there are some things where it's just like, well, in this particular situation, for this one person, for this instance, this part of it's true.
Well, we've also seen in some cases, and because I sent you, we've talked about this, and I sent you some like Instagram stuff where it'll be like a very credible person, and then someone else will take something they said that has a lot of truth to it, and the way they edit, however the video is, it comes out like a completely different narrative, and it completely twists the information to be a different
to fit whatever their
agenda is, or whatever
yeah.
they're trying to say. So you do really have to like pay attention to those things.
Yeah. So I think what it comes down to is this: knowledge is to an extent power, but wisdom is even better. And so wisdom is basically being able to take the knowledge and I believe apply it. And that comes from experience, right? It comes from, your own ability to apply something. And so having the wisdom to discern what's good and what's bad, or what's, I don't know, maybe not good and bad, but what's better and best. How about that? And so whereas, okay, if you cut your calories, yes, that's going to help you lose weight. Mm-hmm. If you pay attention to your macronutrients, yes, that means you are going to probably not just lose weight, but you're probably going to do a better job about losing fat and gaining lean mass. Mm-hmm. If you pay attention to also the micronutrients, if you pay attention to, the quality of the food that you eat, eating more fruits and vegetables and things with less processed foods, right? And even that's going to do you better. But if you take it to another step and like you're eating grass-fed beef instead of just like ultra-processed beef, you're eating more organic type products. If you can get stuff and you grow it yourself, right? So there's all these different tiers and levels of better and best, good, better, best. And so I think as you're maturing and as you're learning, that's I think what fitness should be. And I think that's what would help people so much more is if they took fitness as more of a learning opportunity.
Yeah.
So if you are going to when you go to school, part of the job of going to school is to learn. It's not just to, in my opinion, it's not just to regurgitate information to pass a test. Mm-hmm. That's not the point of that's not what school is for. Mm-hmm. School is to help you learn how to problem solve.
Be a thinker.
And learn how to think.
Yeah.
And so if you are able to attain that through, your education, well, then you apply that. And so when you go get a job, you don't go learn like whatever it is just so you can regurgitate, pass the test. You're going to have to apply that stuff to the job, the actual job you're going to do. And so the more you learn the intricacies of whatever your profession is, the better at the profession you are, the more successful you are. So if people would take fitness in that same aspect and they would try to educate themselves more on some of the, you don't have to become a professor or a personal trainer or whatever, like a run coach. But if we educated ourselves more, then we could disseminate the good from the bad, and we could realize and implement. Because honestly, all I do, I would consider myself a sports fitness scientist. That's what I would consider myself, because everything I do, for the most part, is experimentation. So I have an athlete. Mm-hmm. We have a hypothesis that, hey, if I give you more volume at a lower intensity, you're going to get faster. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, I don't know you all that well, so we have to experiment.
And that would be the training plan.
Yeah, we would experiment. I'm going to give you a plan. And as we go through this first plan, we're going to see what the results are.
Yeah.
If this volume works, great, we're on the right path. What we said was true. Bam, there's the result from our hypothesis. So now we're going to continue to build off of that. And so sometimes we implement some kind of training and maybe it doesn't give us the result we were looking for. And so we adapt the training a little bit and see, okay, well, if that didn't work as much as we wanted it to, what if we did this? Would this work? And so the more we do that, the more I do that, the better I get when I have new athletes. Then I feel like the shorter the amount of time we have in the experimentation process, because we can take proven workouts or proven training blocks and apply them to a similar athlete or someone who's got a similar goal. Does that make sense?
No, 100%. I mean, you did that with me a couple months back, my speed work. Like we were doing tempo runs at a certain time and distance, and I was doing great, but then when we started getting the higher times, I wasn't hitting my times. Mm-hmm. So you kind of went to the drawing board, and then we started doing, I think, like mile intervals and half mile intervals, and really kind of started hitting my targeted times again and kind of, building up my confidence. Not I suck at this.
Yes.
You know, just
Right.
so it was like you said, just seeing what worked, and it worked well for a while. Then once I got to a certain time, I just wasn't hitting it, and then it really just kind of time to change it up.
Yeah. So I believe like this whole thing of fitness and running and, you know, sport is part science, part art. There's a subtle art of putting together good workouts and, you know, putting the easy with the hard and the recovery, the nutrition, the sleep, all of those aspects in it to create an atmosphere that is sustainable, that also lends itself to the person's preferences. So in other words, you're doing something that you can enjoy.
Yep.
And then something that will affect your particular body type or your genetics or your natural inclinations. And when you're able to do that, that I believe is where the best results come from, because you tend to be more consistent. You stick with it, you learn, and then you can grow from that.
100%. Just what you were saying with diet, you know, just if I counted my calories every day, I'm sure it would be, you know, a lot better like on my macros. I don't like to count calories every day.
Yeah.
I just go, you know, size of my fist, protein, in my palm, a carb, plus or minus, and just kind of eat a little bit more. Just try to be selective, you know, organic and stuff like that. But I can't sustain counting calories every day. It's just wouldn't work for me.
Limiting that gelato?
Never
Limiting.
Never.
Always gelato.
Always room for gelato. Like mix your macros a little bit.
Yeah.
So, like you could be really strict, but I like a little dessert here and there. So I leave that room. It's not sustainable for me just to be strictly, you know, nothing but lean proteins and,
Yeah.
you know, good carbs and vegetables. I like a little sweet every now and then. So that's sustainable for me.
Yeah. So, and I think each person, each individual has to figure that out, and that takes practice. But I think one of the things that would help is because, you know, I think I was talking to someone today. We were out running it, and we were talking about like my weaknesses, right? And you know, I'm a sweet guy too. I like sweets. I like cookies, right? I like the worst kinds of sweets, right? So I like the ones that are super high, not only in sugar but in fat, carbohydrates. And then I also have a bad habit of like, if one is good, 10 is even gooder, you know?
Even gooder.
And like if I have a cookie, you know, so like, they don't make little cookies anymore. Like if you buy them from the places, you know.
Oh, now they're like 800
One cookie
calories.
is
Yeah, they're
4
like
cookies.
Yeah, one cookie is like 4 or 5 cookies, right? Well, I don't just eat one cookie, you know, because you have to have the cookie, you have to warm it up, and you have to put like ice cream on top of it, right? So for it
Yeah.
to be properly done.
I've seen you do it. It's impressive. Like I came here at dessert at your house and I gobbled up my dessert, and this man came out with a whole.
I made a presentation.
It was like Chili's. It had a little ice cream on top, had a little candle,
Had a little
It was
sparkler.
horrible. It
The whole
was,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah,
It
I
was.
think that's one of the things that annoys my wife more than anything. You've seen like the memes. You've seen the things where like the other day I saw one. It was like a woman, and she's like, "How I eat when my husband is home," and she's got like a plate, and it's all like beautifully prepared. It's like got all the things you need.
Steaks,
It's just, you know,
potatoes.
everything, right?
Accoutrement.
Exactly. And then it's like how I eat when I'm by myself.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like she had a fork and a knife and she was cutting potato chips on the plate, you know? And I'm like, this is my life. Because if I get home and my wife or whatever makes dinner for herself, or this is probably a better way to put it, I get home and I start making me something to eat, and I'm like, hey, have you eaten? Yeah. So you don't need to eat any of this? No, I've already eaten. Okay, well, what'd you eat?
a charcuterie board.
And then I hear like,
does love them.
I hear like mumbling under her breath, and I'm like, "What did you say?" I had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I was like, "Huh? That's not dinner. That's a snack."
I feel like Leah's kind of like me. Like our preferred diets would just be constant girl dinner.
What does that mean?
Girl dinner is like you're constantly just noshing on random things.
Yes,
That's
it's
mine
just,
for sure.
It's the her idea of like sustenance is just putting something in my mouth.
Yeah.
That I could chew, swallow it. I just ate.
Yeah.
And in my experience and understanding, and probably more so than anything, my desire, that ain't food. It needs to be food. It needs to be prepared. And if you're going to prepare it, you might as well make it taste good.
Absolutely.
So there needs to be, multiple layers to this meal. That may mean I might have to, if I'm going to do a shrimp and grits, that means there needs to be grits, and then the grits need to have some substance to it. So that means I'm probably going to have to put, some butter and some garlic and some cheese in it. And then I'm going to have to make some sort of sauce that goes on it. That's tomatoes and garlic and onions mixture with maybe a little chipotle pepper in there. And then I'm also going to have to saute that so that all those flavors come together. But then I also have to put the shrimp in it, right? So that means I'm going to have to cook the shrimp, and I'm going to have to grill that up, make that nice and tasty. Maybe even put in a little bacon or ham just to really sauce that up a little bit. Then I put it on top. And then you can't just do that. You need to go ahead and probably cut up a little bit of green onion and some parsley to put it on top, because you have to have accoutrement.
You better hope Leah doesn't just kick you out, because I'm going to swoop you up. I'm
going to take your girl.
That meal sounds delicious. I'm going to swoop you up, buddy.
Look, all you have to do is hang around by about like 12:45, 1 o'clock, and you might catch some leftovers.
That's true.
What do they tell you about feeding strays? they don't.
I don't cook for her anymore. I don't make her lunch anymore.
Stray?
I don't make her lunch. No. I was for a while. Like, I would bring enough for me, because I would cook it.
It was always very delicious.
Because it wasn't like it wasn't like harder to make for two than it is for one, right?
Yeah, it's just.
So, I was just trying to be helpful, so I would always bring enough so that I would have enough to give her.
I felt bad.
And then, she made me feel bad.
I felt so bad.
Because I somehow made her feel bad for being nice.
Let me guess. I picture you have this meal and you see over there, I'm fine with this cracker.
This one time I made something.
Oh.
And I'm pretty sure it was really good. Because I try only to make good food.
Your food's always good.
And she was over there, and I don't know if it was her family had made it for her.
Yeah.
Something.
Oh, yeah.
And she's like so sitting there in front of her, and she didn't. And I was like, hey, I made some da da. You can have. You're more than welcome. I've got more than enough. She's like, no, I've got this. And I was like, and she's like, it's like she's putting it in her mouth, and every time.
I picture like goulash from the Russian prison.
Whatever it was. I don't even remember what it was, but it was my mom made this, or my dad made this.
No, it was my dad.
Made it for me, so I have to eat it. And I'm like, they're not even watching you eat it. You don't have to eat it.
But they'll know.
And she's like, no, I don't want them to feel bad. I'm like, dude, don't eat something that you don't like, that's no good.
I have constant guilt.
I'm like, what the heck? So I was like, you know what? I don't want to force. I don't want to be adding to the guilt that her parents are already putting on her for eating their food.
Now she's got to eat 2 meals.
Yeah. Now she's got to shove. She's crying the whole time. Food just coming out of her mouth.
And you're trying to do run training over there. It's just not.
Yeah, I'm just trying to coach people. Yeah. This chick's over here, just food just flowing down her side of her mouth. It's just like it won't fit anymore, but she's still trying to shove it in. Crying. So yes, I no longer do that. I just make enough for me, and if there's any leftover, actually, I gave my leftovers to Matt the other day. I need to ask him if he liked it, if it was any good, if he thought it was any good.
He did one time. Coach Jamie was here, and he asked Jamie if she wanted lunch, and she immediately got excited and said, "Oh my gosh, yes!" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm not going to bother giving it to Lauren anymore because she gets stressed over it."
Well, the other thing too is she could you know what, I'm going to take this home for dinner, and then end up underneath the front seat of her car. And then you and I may be able to share it later on at a later date.
Like next to the sandwich?
Yes.
You just put it right on
the gyro.
Yeah, that's right. That'll be good for later.
You'll make me sound like such a rat person.
No, well, we shouldn't have said stray. Let me.
There's no we. We did not say stray. Okay. You said stray.
I mean, like the French we. Like we. So when I said stray, I meant trash panda, which you are self-proclaimed.
I do identify with a little raccoon creature.
So that's what I meant.
Okay,
so
that's fine. I accept.
That's a stray.
I will neither. I'm not co-signing. I'm not saying anything to any of those points. All I'm saying is, guys,
we listen. We don't judge.
All right, guys. Anything like any other comments? Anything? I think we've.
No, we kind of deciphered through it. Trying to filter all the noise out there online. And
do you feel like we've gotten to a place where we've established a good parameters or blueprint for how to filter?
One other thing I'd like to add to that is don't be afraid to come ask us coaches.
Yeah.
If you have a coach, a personal
You don't
trainer,
know.
kind of lean towards them, because they should know you better than this Instagram post would.
This
Yeah.
random
They should-
person who's never met you.
Who's never met you. If you've been with a coach for a little bit, they've seen you work. They know your strong points, weak points. There's where you can get some good filtered data, specific towards you.
Yeah.
That they should know.
And if you find something, I would say don't be afraid to ask them.
Yeah.
Right. And if they're afraid to answer, right, or they don't respond, that could be a sign
I was
right
gonna say
there.
that could be your answer.
That could be your answer, right? So,
My wife yells a lot. She does know what she's talking about. That's just how she talks. So just want to throw that out there. So,
she just talks loud.
She
That's how
yes.
my wife says it. I don't yell. I just talk loud.
Yes. Now, if I talk loud, why are you yelling?
Yes.
So it's a very
Yes.
one-sided street on that.
It is.
Yes.
It's okay though. It's okay. So yeah, if we talk about something on here and like we say something that maybe you don't understand or you have a question, feel free. I mean, you can email us. You can email me at james@mybcfit.com. You can go obviously down in the comments. I love questions. I love people engaging.
Go onto our Instagram. Drop us some messages and DMs. We might we will answer them. We might send you something. We're more than happy to have a conversation about
Yeah.
things.
Lauren will send you a floorboard sandwich.
She might.
Free gift.
She might. Some floorboard salmon. Floorboard salmon, right? So yeah, no, for sure. Because here's one of the things that I think it's becoming a lost art, but I think it's one of the things that really lends to intelligence, and it's the art of being able to have a conversation from two different points of view, and without like it turning into a rhetoric or argument or whatever. Like debate is okay. Healthy debate is okay. So if you maybe have a different opinion than me, please come and talk to me. I had a conversation today with somebody and basically they told me I suck and how horrible I am and how wrong I am about how I handle things all the time. And I was listening to it and I was like, now if we flip this the other way around and I said these things to you, I would be judging you and attacking you. And I told them this too. But what you're saying is 100% true.
You agreed.
You're not wrong. You're right. You're 100% correct. And yes, these are things I should work on, and they're things I do work on, or I'm trying to work on. But we're all human. We all, we're fallible, and so sometimes we do a good job of that. And then when you are, we talked about this before. When you reach a certain point in your life and you have certain goals. So like one of my goals is, like I want to be. And maybe it's not a good goal, and it's probably a goal I should reestablish or relook at, is, when I say things, right, I want people to be like not offended by it. I want people to like basically say, oh, that's just James. That's just that old cuss.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming.
That's kind of been underneath an underlying thing. But then I think about that, and I'm like, well, I really don't want that because I want people to like I want the things I say to be effectual and to like hit home and hopefully be, life-changing to an extent. So I want a perfect balance of don't offend. That's just that old dude.
So some sternness.
Yeah.
Some understanding.
But then also, man, that was wisdom. And I don't know what that balance looks like and how to get that, but that's the goal ultimately. I want to teeter between like wisdom that blew my mind and this dude is old and from a different age and we really don't take what he says too seriously because it's just James.
Yeah, I think it's going to be the message. If you start spouting back, this is what we did in the, late 90s, then they might just kind of tune you out. But if you
In the
kinda
late
keep-
90s.
Yes, if you keep kind of, spouting the current information and being a sound kind of voice of wisdom, I think you're on the right track.
So maybe it's just when and where I say what I say. So on the runs, I can be crazy old codger.
You basically want to be like Master Shifu.
Yeah.
You know who
That's
Master
it.
Shifu is?
I do,
You basically that does Master Shifu. Do you know who that is?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Kung Fu Panda,
Yeah.
the little.
I don't want to be
panda
this.
creature.
I don't want to be Master Shifu. I want to be the tortoise.
No, because he is not mean, or he is like
No.
he is
The tortoise is awesome
wise.
because he says all this wise stuff.
He's very
But he's like an
wise.
old crazy, like you don't know what's going
But
to come
you're
out
not,
of his
you don't
mouth.
want to be crazy. He's
No,
like,
I want to be a little crazy.
Remember
but
Kill
he's like
Bill?
delusional crazy.
Kill Bill?
Oh, Bill.
Oh, Kill Bill, the movie?
Yeah.
The old, her martial arts trainer?
Oh,
Yes.
Remember, just had her punching the board?
Yes,
and
over
just-
and over again.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I want to be like that old, like so much wisdom coming out, but then you're not sure if I'm a little insane.
See, I think you're more like Master Shifu because like he was very, very wise, but he didn't take he didn't like really tolerate a lot of like stupid stuff
Yeah.
from the panda.
Yeah.
and he would put him in his place very quickly, usually in a very like take your feet out from under you and like smack you around a little bit.
No, I agree with you. That's probably
to
more
me,
me.
more you.
But what I want to be is the
You wanna be
crazy
the
old
tortoise.
tortoise. That's what I want.
Where that's just
see
Grandpa
it.
losing his mind.
I see it though, kind of like the old wise bull, out in the track. You're like, okay, young bulls, there you go. You're flying around those laps.
Yeah, yeah.
You got everyone beat except Jonathan, but he's beat
true.
us all. But
Well-
everyone else, you're right there leading. So I think people are like, is this guy kind of old? But then you're around those
Still
laps,
lapping 'em.
showing he's
You're
still
lapping
got
all
it.
those
So
20-year-olds except
still
Jonathan.
got
So
it.
Master Shifu until I hit about 60 or so.
And then you can be
and
the
then I can
tortoise.
transition to Oogway. Thank you. That's his
Oogway.
name. Oogway. Yeah, crazy old codger.
We love Uruguay.
All right, guys, that's it for the Running with James podcast today. As usual, we always appreciate when you guys come in. Thank you so much for being a part. If you go to our YouTube, make sure you follow us, and you don't realize how much it would help if you just share whatever it is. So whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts, whether you're on Spotify, whether you're on Pandora. I think only old people listen on Pandora is what I was told the other day.
Put it on
Yes.
your grandma's phone. Just send it to your
Just
grandma.
put it on grandma. Yeah, get your grandma's phone or your mom's phone.
Just hit
and
play.
just put it on there, right? Just follow her. Just follow it and subscribe or whatever, and like it. But if you can as well, or not if you can, I know you can. If you will, how about that? One of the things that I made a comment, somebody was talking about you the other day.
Good, bad.
Awesome. I was like, Coach Carlos is so awesome. Coach Carlos is so good. Oh my God, he's helped me so much.
You get so much positive
And I was like, you know what? That is awesome. I love hearing that. But can you go on Google and put that on Google?
Please put it on a Google
yes.
review, people.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Go on
review
Yelp
that.
and say, Coach Carlos over BC Fitness is the best thing since sliced bread.
Absolutely.
Do
it.
if you would, please go and like on Apple, on Spotify, you can leave comments, you can leave reviews. So please, if you enjoy it, please do that. That really will help us out. And we had a pretty good milestone this past week. We had 1,000 downloads a week.
Wow.
Which is pretty good, I think.
Nice.
I mean, it's not
Excellent.
obviously it's not Joe Rogan and Huberman level, right? That's because you jokers ain't sharing it.
They had to start somewhere.
They had to start somewhere. So, but that's a pretty good milestone for us. So that means that we are we're being effectual, right?
Yep.
So that's up from
People
about,
are coming back.
Yeah. So that's, I think at the beginning of the year we were more closer to like 300 or 400.
Wow.
So that's a good jump, right? So we'll keep growing, and as long as you guys are listening, we'll keep doing it. So thank you for coming in. We appreciate it. Remember, when you change your mind,
You change your life.
Bang. End on that note.